Developing right now, a congressional investigation is underway into whether Attorney General Eric Holder lied under oath to Congress. Lawmakers now trying to clarify the Attorney General's testimony about his knowledge and involvement in the potential criminal prosecution of journalists. Joining me now, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, great to see you here.
Megyn, it's always good to be with you.
How much trouble do you think Eric Holder's in right now?
Well, I think that the conduct of the Justice Department does not inspire confidence. We have seen pattern after pattern with respect to investigation of the media. We've seen the Department of Justice willing to seize the phone records, to seize the emails of this network, of the Associated Press. And by all appearances, the Attorney General went before Congress, stated he had nothing to do with it. And now it's become public that he did, in fact, have quite a bit to do with it. I think the Attorney General needs to come forward and explain what the truth is and why he told Congress something different.
Now, our viewers should know you went to Harvard Law School. You clerked for Chief Justice William Rehnquist, then Chief Justice William Rehnquist. You were the Solicitor General down in Texas, meaning the top appellate arguer. And then you worked for the Department of Justice under President Bush. You were the Deputy Attorney General. So you know a thing or two about being Attorney General and about the law. How unusual is it in your experience for the DOJ to be going after reporters, their records, and so on? I mean, is this to you something that would likely stand out in Eric Holder's mind?
Oh, it's unprecedented. And the degree of willingness of this administration to target a reporter for this network as an unindicted co-conspirator, I mean, that is without precedent. And unfortunately, I think it's part and parcel of a pattern from this administration of not respecting the Bill of Rights, not respecting the First Amendment, not respecting the Second Amendment, not respecting our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights regarding drone strikes, regarding the IRS. Over and over again, the pattern we've seen is an unfortunate willingness to use the machinery of the federal government as a tool and a partisan tool to punish those perceived as your political enemies. And I think that's really troubling, particularly when combined with a willingness to dissemble and to mislead the American people.
Do you think this comes from the top?
Well, it certainly, we have seen the lack of candor from the Attorney General, and there's been a pattern at the Department of Justice of disregarding the law. And let me say, as someone who served in the Department of Justice, who respects, you know, the Department of Justice is an institution that reveres the law and that has a solemn obligation to follow the law. And when you have the U.S. Department of Justice disregarding the law multiple times, that raises serious concerns.
Do you think President Obama should ask for Eric Holder's resignation?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the reason is this Department of Justice has demonstrated a willingness to disregard the law. Look, if you go back to the Fast and Furious scandal, where the U.S. Department of Justice was responsible for selling guns to Mexican drug cartels. Those guns were used to murder hundreds of innocent civilians and at least 2 federal law enforcement officers. Now, Megyn, if you or I, you practiced law a long time, if you or I sold guns to a drug cartel, we'd be thrown in jail.
And yet in that case, they basically fired nobody. Ultimately, a couple people resigned, the desk chairs were shuffled. And we just talked about how in the State Department, in the wake of Benghazi, you got 4 people on paid administrative leave. No one gets fired. So far at the IRS, they've asked for the resignation of one guy who was about to leave anyway. And then there was another guy. But the people who are actually doing it, everybody's still in place. Lois Lerner, paid administrative leave. I know it's hard to fire a bureaucrat, but it can be done, can it not?
It certainly can, but there's got to be accountability. I think President Obama needs to take responsibility and needs to tell the truth. You know, in recent weeks, there are at least 2 instances of senior officials for the administration telling flat-out falsehoods. Number one, the White House press secretary said with regard to Benghazi that neither the White House nor the State Department had changed the talking points at all, other than changing the word consulate. Now, within a few days, ABC News reported that wasn't true, that they'd changed it a dozen times. They deleted al-Qaeda. They deleted references to terrorism. Now, that was simply an objectively false statement made on behalf of the President of the United States to the American people. Likewise, the IRS went before Congress and said they were not targeting groups based on political affiliation, and at the time, senior leadership of the IRS knew that wasn't true. The Deputy Secretary of the Treasury Department, a political appointee, had been told that wasn't true. And, you know, that...
Now, trust is eroding. Trust is eroding among the American people, and I want to ask you about that because you made headlines recently by saying you do not trust the Republicans or the Democrats on the subject of the debt and the debt ceiling. And now your critics have come out and said, look at this guy. He's a, quote, enemy of compromise. All he wants is all-out political war because he hates both parties. Your response?
Look, I think we need to fix the problem. I think so many of the American people are frustrated, and they're frustrated with leaders in both parties. In the last 4.5 years, our national debt's gone from $10 trillion to nearly $17 trillion. We're bankrupting the country. We're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. And I think the American people are frustrated with political bickering in Washington, with excuses. I think we need no excuses. Fix the problem. This issue arose because Harry Reid in the Senate is trying to use a procedural backdoor to raise the debt ceiling with using just 50 votes instead of 60, which would mean he could just keep digging the debt hole deeper, charge more and more trillions on the national credit card while doing nothing to fix the problem, to get our economy growing, to stop the structural spending problems. And I think we need to stop playing politics, roll up our sleeves and fix the problem. I think that's what voters expect of us.
What do you make of there's been such a backlash against you from some, in particular on the left. They call you a bomb thrower. They say you're too far right. They don't see you as the future of the Republican Party because they think you're too far to the right to win and win over moderates.
Well, look, folks are entitled to throw whatever the rocks they want, whatever insults they want. I can tell you from my end, I have no intention of reciprocating. Whatever insult they level my way, I will not respond in kind. What I'm going to stay focused on is trying to do the job the American people want and expect. And I'll tell you, you know, there's some Republicans that will beat their chest and say they're the most terribly conservative people on earth. Listen, I'm working to defend common sense conservative principles, living within your means. That's not a particularly right or left concept. Outside of Washington, D.C., that's basic common sense. Don't bankrupt the country. Don't bankrupt your household. Live within your means. Don't spend money we don't have. Don't put so many taxes and regulations on the economy that you kill small businesses and kill jobs. That's common sense.
I got a hard break in 20 seconds. You going to run? You going to run for the next step, sir?
100% of my focus is the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, you can never get a straight answer on this question. Never. But I have to ask. Senator, it's great to see you.